to that. Okay, great. So we're gonna start. Let me just see what's that in the chat. Okay, we're okay. We're looking all right. Close that. Let me go back to just very quickly the financial, escape. The financial presentation, just to do a quick recap on that. And just to show you a few more things on financial planning. So we just went through the different things and the different considerations and processes for analyzing the project viability. It boils down to that. Good idea, good business value proposition, good business model canvas, nice. Project viability is now key. Right? That's what's going to separate your project from a good project to one that can go forward. Right? If you have project viability, just as an entrepreneur for your own self, outside of this competition, and you want to look for financing for your business, or look for financing for your project, I just want to share a few things with you just so that you have that as your understanding. Right? There's 3 things that you generally would finance in an innovation or in an innovative idea. And I've highlighted them on this slide. Oh, let me go into presentation mode. You have research and development, R&D. You have a startup business, and you have an expanding business. And it kind of follows that sequence when you're doing an innovation development anyway. But the first thing that you may want to consider getting financing for is formal research and development. So let's say you came up with a really good idea that maybe has some technology or some unique design component to it. And you got it to a point where you've almost have proof of concept, but there's still some research that you need to do. You still need to refine some things. You maybe need to test it in the laboratory. You may even need to use laboratory facilities, such as what is available maybe in engineering, maybe agriculture, maybe MIC, possibly Nehurst or Kariri, right? They all have lab facilities that can allow you to test projects. There's one entrepreneur that I'm working with right now who is using MIC. That's, you know where that is. That's in the industrial estate in Makoya, that area there, close to where the Center of Excellence is. And so she's testing some equipment, and it requires MIC's expertise in 3D printing and that sort of thing to be able to test that equipment. And that's research and development. That's what R&D is all about. Taking it to the next level and getting it to the point where you have a full market-ready prototype that you can now sell. And R&D does that. But R&D is expensive. To use companies like MIC or Kariri and their facilities and their expert engineers to come in and test something, that's not for free. That costs money. And sometimes you need R&D grant funding. An investor doesn't really invest in R&D like that because there's no return on the investment. When I do R&D, the outcome is a finished product, but I ain't selling yet. It's a finished product design that can then be used in an investment in a business model canvas or a detailed business plan to then do an investment of capital to start the company. But prior to that, the R&D that is involved is really getting you to the point of a market-ready prototype. That's investors are not investing in that. Some companies will provide funding, but it's a grant fund. And because they know that it's not a return on investment, so it's a grant. And there's usually grant funds that are available. So there's Caribbean Climate Smart Accelerator. That's, if you Google that, they're one of the, actually no, they do investment funds. They do investment fund. But there are some entities, such as the IDB, working with Kariri right now, that provide grant funding for R&D, for research and development. Government of Trinidad and Tobago typically puts out calls for proposals for innovation research and R&D research, and they would provide grant funding for that, right? A program that I recently ran with Unitrust Corporation provided $500,000 grant funding, 250 by 250, to 2 projects to do product testing and product development. And there are 2 projects that won. One was a UWI graduate. Actually, both of them were UWI graduates. One recently graduated, who used to be in my entrepreneurship class a couple of years ago. And the other he's graduated some years ago, and then he went over to Jack. And he has a really good product design as well. But both of them got $250,000 grant funding. So grant funding, the funder understands that there's not a return here. So they grant the money, but it's conditional. You have to do the research. You have to do the work because they are relying on you to do that research, right? Not for an investment, but because they want to know that they've supported this project. Startup funding is not a grant. Well, you might get, in some cases, it's possible that you could get grant funding. There was at one point, especially when coming through NEDCO and the government's support to startup companies, they were providing grant funding for startups. NEDCO generally does not do that. They do business financing. In other words, you get a loan. But they will act for on behalf of the government if the government puts out a grant fund facility for startups, right? And they will then act as the agent for issuing those funds. So every now and again, you could check with NEDCO to see if there's anything like that available. The only one that I know of that's running right now is the one that we're managing on this particular program. They are providing a $15,000 grant fund to a winning proposal. That's what you guys are in here for right now, right? But generally, for starting a company, you need seed capital, startup funding. And you might get an investor, but usually investors don't come in at a business when it is at the startup stage. They kind of see that that's too risky. Investors like to come in when you've been running your business for at least a year and you have proven that the business model works. In other words, you got through that first year, that startup phase, you got through there, and you've kind of proven some level of success. You made some revenues, you generated some profit, and you were able to, establish that you have a good brand and customers are satisfied, etc., etc. When investors see that, then they become interested in, okay, we like that. Now let's invest in the company to really get you up and running and to scale it up to a profitable level. That's where investors typically come in. Not so much at the startup phase, not so much at the R&D phase. They come in when they know you're making money, and then they come in and invest, right? When does the UTC grant competition run? It ran. It's the first cohort is done. So it actually ran from last year to just recently. I'm still now working with UTC on the top 8 candidates that have all won. The first prize winner is getting up to $1 million. There are 2 R&D projects that got $250,000 each. And there are 5 micro-enterprise projects that will get $50,000 each. The $50,000 each are grant funds, like seed funding, seed capital. Sometimes entities do that. They provide a seed capital fund. It's like a grant fund just to get you up and running. And that's what that was, that tier 3. The tier 2 was the R&D fund. And that's for these 2 projects to do research and development. And then the tier 1 was the investment. That business had been in operation for about a year. They have demonstrated certain levels of operational feasibility. And now the UTC is investing in that project, right? So we kind of, in my office on campus, we manage that system. We did all of the the training, the development, and the working with the entrepreneurs, and now they're getting that. Now, we want to do another one in January. As a matter of fact, we were surprised that the government caught sight of our project, and they are now interested in putting $15 million into that program come January. So that would be something that you could look out for in future. That's going to come up. It's going to be marketed properly, so you'll hear about it. Right? But that's a very interesting one as well. On this particular project, this is the UWI-NEDCO Bootcamp. This is also very good, and it's going to help you to sort of kickstart a business if you are the project winner. But even if you are not, NEDCO has a very good program. I know, I used to work there. They have a very good program for accelerating business projects. They provide additional training to what you get here. They provide one-on-one mentorship, and they're a finance company. That's what they do. So they can lend you the money with reasonable terms, you know, with a little moratorium, et cetera, to get you and your business up and running. So if you make it to the top 6, I'm going to recommend all the top 6 candidates to be a part of their program, whether you got the $15,000 or not. So you're trying to really design a good pitch proposal. Okay? And that's what they do. They specialize in that. Okay, so that's the type of funding that you normally want to keep in mind when you do a pitch proposal. You have to know what you're asking for. Are you at the R&D phase and you're looking for funding for research and development? Are you at the startup phase and you're looking for seed capital just to get you started? And that's like basic equipment. You're not asking for everything. You just need to get basic equipment and basic maybe working capital just to get you up and running so that you can prove that you have a good prospective business model. And then if you go through that phase and you come out demonstrating good, you know, operating feasibility, you can now go to investors. UTC is now acting like an investor. NEDCO may in future. There are companies that do that as well, Republic Bank, where they may be willing to invest if you are coming through the right channel and the right programs. Entities like UTC, NEDCO, Republic Bank, if they invest, it's because they are working under a specialized program, like this NEDCO Bootcamp or something like that. They operate within a specialized program because investing like that is not their general scope of work. That's not what they do. But they will, under a specialized program, working with an entity like the UWI and the UWI Ventures and Entrepreneurship Unit, they will do something like that. Okay, so you will hear about any programs like that. Okay. If you're a startup company, this line in the middle, that sort of curvy line, that sort of makes that little dip and then starts rises and going up and over like that. That's kind of a representation of the cash that you would have on hand or in your bank if you start a company. And basically all it's showing is that when you start a company, your cash starts to go down. It goes right down because you're spending money on equipment. Let's say you started with $100,000 in the bank. When you start your company, you're going to be buying equipment, buying resources, setting up shelving, you know, setting up your computers and your software. You're going to be spending money. And at some stage, you're going to start generating revenue. That's the startup phase. If you look at, let me get a laser pointer, see if I can show that to you. So this is where you start, assuming you've done the research and development already. So you've done that, you have a proven business concept, and you don't want to start a company. This is where you start. You're going to be spending money. Your money going to just start to go down. It's going to fall because you're going to be spending that money. But as you start selling product or start selling service, your balance starts slowly turning around. You start slowly turning around. Sorry if you're hearing that loud noise. I think they're just passing by the window there. Yeah, your balance going to start slowly turning around, and then you're going to start earning revenue up to the point possibly where you recover your initial $100,000. That's when you recover your investment. And beyond that, you may be earning even more money and growing the business, as you can see here. So this kind of life cycle of your business, represented by how much balance you have in the bank, is typically what happens in a company when you start. You spend and you lose money. And then you start earning revenue, and then you start recovering that money. And you slowly grow to the point where you have more money than you originally started with. Investors and banks and finance companies, they don't like to put money in this stage. This is too risky for them. They will only do it if it's part of a specialized program where they have a certain allocation of fund for seed capital or anything like that, right? But generally, this is not what they do. Most of the time, as an entrepreneur, you're on this on your own. You do this by bootstrapping, trying to get your own money in play, right? If you do, the best place to get money, if you don't have your own, is to enter a specialized program, like a business incubator, a bootcamp, a business accelerator program. So a NEDCO bootcamp, like what we all know, this is a good place to get funding to get you out of this position here. There are other business incubators and accelerators around. So the NEDCO accelerator will, give you seed capital. They will lend it to you. And then you'll have to start paying it back when you get to this position here. Right? But this is what they do under that accelerator program. So long as you qualify and you meet their criteria, you can get through this. I know they run that program, and they've asked me to sort of, channel any sort of projects into that program from the UWIs. And this is one of the reasons why we have the UWI-NEDCO Bootcamp, to identify the top 6 that we can now channel into that program. So startup phase, most of the time, it's hard to get funding unless you're in a program. Anywhere in the world, not just Trinidad. When you get to this phase, well, everybody's your friend. Everybody looking at, wow, look at that business. Let's be an investor on that business. Yeah, we want to be part of that. That's when you start getting investors. They like that. Even the banks that normally wouldn't touch your business, they would be interested in giving you a favorable loan terms for a business that is at this level of performance. Beyond that, you could even go beyond individual investors and register on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. And if you register on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, there's also the Jamaican Stock Exchange, which is very good, right? World famous. When you're on the stock exchange, essentially you have access to public investors. In other words, the public can buy stocks in your company. They can buy shares. So when you hear a person is trading in stocks and they're buying stocks and shares, they're buying, what they're buying is an investment in a company, some company that is growing or doing well, or some sector or some industry that's doing well. They're buying stocks. And that's because that company is registered on the stock exchange. So when you have a company registered on the stock exchange, the public can buy shares in your company, whether they buy $1,000 worth of shares or $50 worth of shares and they get 1 share, whatever that is. It's the volume that gives you the investment capital that you need. There's so many persons in the public space. So it all adds up, and that's how you get investment when you register on the stock exchange. But of course, you have to be compliant with the laws and regulations of Trinidad and Tobago. You have to do your taxes, annual returns. You have to have a board of directors. You have to have, a proper company to do that, right? So that's eventually, if you start a company, that's where you're trying to get to, at that level. Okay, so I mentioned bootstrapping. Bootstrapping is simply basically using your own funds. And my review suggests that when I did my own research, 80% of companies on the planet, they bootstrap just to get them through that first year, right? So most companies, you're not alone in this. If you have to start a business, you're kind of bootstrapping. In other words, you're using your own money, you're taking the profits from it, and you're investing it back into your own business. So somebody asks, how do I account for my expertise? Because I'm the owner and the founder. Do I pay myself? Well, when you are bootstrapping, you kind of making a lot of sacrifice for the sake of your company. You're kind of doing a lot of work and putting a lot of your professional time and expertise, for the sake of your business. So rather than paying yourself, you decide you're going to forfeit any income to you and just plow that back into the business to buy more machines, more inventory, more branches, more marketing to scale that business up. That's what bootstrapping is all about, right? Lending institutions like a NEDCO or commercial bank, or, a Republic Bank, FCB, DFL, GMMB, all of these lending institutions. The banks, they operate like banks. You could deposit money and save, etc. But they also lend money. They generally don't lend money, as I say, to start up businesses. That's very rare that they do that because that's too risky for them. Banks don't take that type of risk. NEDCO is designed as a state enterprise from the government to help small businesses start, but even they generally don't lend money to a business that is just starting. That's, again, too risky. They will at least want to see that you're in business for 6 months to at least a year before they can say, okay, they have the confidence in lending you money. And that is, of course, unless you're on one of their specialized programs as a startup entrepreneur in their business accelerator. So if you're on a specialized program, there may be an exception. But lenders, when they lend money, you have to offer collateral. So if you own a car or if you own something, when you want to borrow $100,000, you have to allocate. You don't physically give them the car, but you have to sort of sign a document that says, if you don't pay back this money, the bank or NEDCO has legal recourse to repossess this vehicle, sell it, and try to make back the money that they lost in lending you this money. So you have to give them collateral. Other than that, you own your business, you run your business, you make your profits, and you decide what you do with your profits. All you have to do is make sure that you pay back the installments every month. As long as you pay the installments every month, whether it is $1,000 for 3 years or $5,000 for 2 years or whatever the installment is, as long as you pay that back, no one is going to touch you. No one is going to trouble you or your business. You could go ahead and run your company. Now, that's different from an investor. When you go and take an investment, if you make an investment pitch, that investor is not lending you this money, That investor is putting the money in the business and becoming a part owner. So if you own a business, let's say you have a business, maybe husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend have a business that they own, and the business is like a little shop worth $10,000, then you own the business, right? You and your husband, you and your wife, you own this business, and the value of your shares is $5,000 each because you each own 50% of the business. You have an equal ownership, right? That's how it is when you own a business. And if it's just you, then you are 100% owner. So if the business is valued at $10,000, you own $10,000. If it's you and another person, then it's usually split 50-50. Now, when you take on an investor, right? When you take on an investor, and that investor says, I like what you're doing, I'm willing to invest, I'm going to put $100,000 into your business. That investor is not lending you that money. That investor is now basically claiming ownership of the business, or in part. So previously, where you and your wife, you and your husband, you and your boyfriend, girlfriend, or whoever it is you're partnered with, you and your business partner, each own 50%. That's this slide here. That's this one. So as you see, below each person, you see 50% or $5,000. That's what you own. When an investor comes in, you have to split that ownership because you can't, the investor now wants part of the business as well. So the investor puts $100,000 in it, and the investor says, hey, what's going on all year? Since I have put in $100,000 into this business, I want to own most of the business. And the investor says, hey, what? I now want to own 50% of the business. Two all year could fight up for the other 50%. So now instead of each of you owning 50% each, you now only own 25% each. Because the investor comes in and says, listen, I put in $100,000. That's most of the money for this business. So I am therefore claiming 50% of the business. Now you could either accept or don't accept it. You could tell the investor, hold your tail, it's okay. We don't want your investment. But I would say think carefully before you say that. Because even though your share in the company has gone down from 50% to 25%, look at the value of your 25%. The value of your 25% is now $27,500. You now are wealthier. You now have more assets. You now have more value. Your business is much more valuable. And therefore, you are now 25% owner of a business that is $110,000 as opposed to $10,000. So as a 50% shareholder, your value, your net worth was $5,000. And you might say to yourself, I don't want to lose my shareholding and go down to 25%. But think carefully. As a 25% shareholder, your net worth is now $27,500 because of the investor's contribution. So now you are now part owner of a much more valuable business enterprise. And that's how investors work. Investors come in, they invest money into the business by buying equipment, resources, etc. But they basically say, I'm not lending you this money. I want to co-own. I want to be a joint owner of this business. I want to sit down on the board of directors, and I want to be a joint owner. So when profits start sharing out, I want to start earning some of the profits of the business. That's why investors invest. They want to earn profits. They want a share of the profits. And if you agree to that, your share of the profits, where it was previously only, you had a 50% share of the business of a $10,000 business, you wouldn't get much profit from that. But now as a 25% shareholder of a $110,000 business, potentially you have a lot more profit that you can get. And that's why you may decide, one sec. And that's why you may decide to accept an investor. Okay? So that's the basics. I'm going to stop sharing this and go into the business pitch. That's the basics of financing your business. And it's a good idea to be aware of those different methods of financing, because even as you do your business pitch, even though you're presenting the judges might ask, what are your thoughts on capitalizing the business? In other words, what are your thoughts on getting funding to start the business? Are you looking for a loan? Are you looking for an investor? Or are you going to try to bootstrap the business yourself? They may ask that. And if they ask that, you will be in a position to give a good response based on what you think would be best for you and your company, right? And as a general rule, you should not say, this is my recommendation to you, you should not say, as a startup, we are looking for an investment of $10 million to get the business from 0 to 100 in 2 days. that won't be realistic. You could say you plan to utilize your own resources and equipment and your expertise just for the first year, just to get the business up and running, to prove the business model, to prove that conceptually this is a good business idea and that there has been market traction. And having kept records and demonstrated that the business can be viable, I will then ask for an investment of XYZ to expand the business. That would be a good response to say. If you were in a specialized program, you can say, this business will require an injection of seed capital of $50,000. And so under this specialized program, we are hoping to be able to attract that $50,000 seed capital from this program. Or we are hoping to attract the $15,000 from this specialized program. You could even say, this business will require $30,000 to start. It requires $30,000 seed capital. We're hoping to land the $15,000 grant funding from this specialized program, and we will add our part of the other $15,000 to get the business up and running, to ensure that we could have the full seed capital requirement to start the business. You could say that as well, right? So there's different ways in which you can present your business and your capitalization plan, your financial plan. Elijah, go ahead, hand is up.
Yeah, while you were on the topic of like the shareholders and stuff, I just had a quick question. When it comes to like non-nationals of a country, so like let's say you wanted to have a business in Trinidad, but you're not actually a citizen. I think I saw something where like non-nationals can own like more than 50% of a business that they register in Trinidad or something.
Yes.
In that case, what do most people do? Do they register the business in the country that they're operating in, or do they register it like where they're originally from and just operate in the country that they're now living in?
Yeah, so you have to have some level of registration in the country that you want to operate in, even if you are not from that country. So I have one entrepreneur right now she's registered in Trinidad. She's now moving to Barbados. And we were just having a conversation just the other night about, does she register the business in Trinidad, keep that, but with a branch operation, almost like a registered subsidiary operation in Barbados, in which case all revenues earned in Barbados, so I think it's taxes still have to come back to Trinidad? Or does she simply register a complete other business doing the same thing in Barbados and then, have two different sets of accounts, operating under the same umbrella brand, but operating as blah, 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 Trinidad Company Limited, and also blah, 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 Barbados Company Limited? At the end of the day, you have to have, by law, some degree of registration in your different countries. And different countries have different types of rules on that. But you can be from one country and register in Trinidad, for example, and operate normally. There's many people who do it, and vice versa. It's just a matter of going to the legal registry in your respective country, or if you're in Trinidad, and beginning the registration process. They generally guide and advise what options you would have if you are from outside of Trinidad and you wanted to register a business in Trinidad and Tobago. We're all in the same Caribbean, so there's a lot of accommodation for that. It happens all the time, right?
Thanks a lot for answering my question.
Just simply, so for example, I recently went to register a new company right here in Trinidad. If I had to ask questions, I just ask them at the registry. It's government workers, so sometimes they're very, very busy. They don't want to answer. If you just stick to it, you got to be patient. you get the information that you want, you know what documents you need, you just supply that, and you get through the process. It's not hard, but you have to be patient. Right? It's not impossible at all to register two businesses under the same brand name, doing the exact same thing, one in Trinidad, one in Barbados, or one in Jamaica. Right? Okay. Let's look at pitch proposals. Let me share screen. Here we are. Let me go to the beginning of this slide. All right. This is what it comes down to, guys. At the end of all of your work, all of your market research, all of your product testing, and all of your business model canvas and putting together your financial analysis, it all boils down to your pitch deck. What are you going to say? And a pitch deck, and a pitch proposal is basically, it's like a 15-minute presentation of your entire business plan in 15 minutes. How are you going to say all of that information in such a short space of time? And it's basically knowing what you need to say and how to emphasize certain things and what sort of information you're going to put together to create your slide deck, right? This is the way I recommend you do it. So let's go through strategies and techniques for doing a pitch proposal. Okay, I'm going to skip this one. Now, I don't need to do the business model canvas recap. I will. I know we've been doing that all along. Usually when I have a class, I usually start with a quick recap of the biz canvas. I'm going to go through that very quickly because that's what we've been talking about all along with you guys. So you know it inside out now. You know what the business model canvas looks like. It's basically 9 cards, 9 sections of a canvas presented in the exact same way that you see here. Maybe not with all the fancy colors and all that, like what I have, but it's basically follows the same structure and format. And on the one side, you have all of your marketing strategy stuff, like your value proposition, your target customers, your market relationship plan, your marketing channel plan, etc. You have all that on one side. And then on the other side, you have all of your key activities, key resources, maybe partners and alliances. Basically, that's your operational plan. What will you do to make your marketing strategy successful? What will you do? And what resources will you need to make those activities happen? That's basically your operational plan. And you have to be able to describe both very well. And down below is basically your financial plan. That's all of your cost drivers, your revenue streams. And from that information, you will be able to derive, you know, the operational profitability. How feasible is this, right? Are you going to make profits if I compare recurring costs with annual revenues? And if the profits are XYZ, how does that relate to the original investment ask? If the investment is so much, how long will it take that level of profit to recover that investment, or that, let's not use the word investment, that capital injection or that startup expense, right? How long will the profits take to cover that startup expense? That's what we really want to be able to explain. That's your financial analysis, okay? So now that we have that as our base, and that is the base for any pitch deck, knowing that information, if you do that well, you're gonna do a good pitch deck. All I therefore have to teach you is technique, strategy, right? But the fundamentals of it comes from your business model canvas. So what is a business pitch? Well, a business pitch is basically, it's a short presentation, right? You've all heard of different pitches, like the elevator pitch. You've heard of Shark Tank. You might have heard of planting seeds, you know, and you have all the sort of different competitions and pitch opportunities and what are pitches. And you've all heard those things and probably have a good sense in your mind of what a pitch looks like and sounds like. At the end of the day, what it is basically a very compressed presentation of your business plan. The key thing to remember is you're always going to have limited time. The reason for a pitch is the investor, judge, business financer. The reason is they don't have a whole lot of time. They don't have the whole day to sit down with you and listen to your business idea. They usually have 1,000,001 things to do, right? And if they decide to give you the whole day, which they sometimes do, to sit down and present your business plan, that will only happen if you first deliver a business pitch that they heard and they said, wow, that seems interesting. Here's what, I'm going to set up an appointment for you. I'd like you to come to my office. I'm going to have my other executives there, and we're going to discuss this business idea. It really sounds good. And we'll do lunch in between. Let's take our time and go through this business plan. That is only going to happen if you did a pitch deck first, right? They're not going to give you that time of day just off the bat, just like that, without you at least doing a first pitch deck, right? So you are going to have limited time. And the next thing you have to figure out, basically, the reason why a pitch deck is you got to be selective. You can't say everything. You only have 15 minutes. You think that's a long time. I guarantee you, when you actually start talking, 15 minutes passes so fast, you wouldn't believe. And you realize you didn't even get to the financial analysis yet, and you have 30 seconds to go. And the judge just says, sir, you have 1 minute left to speak. And now you're scrambling because you realize you took so much of time giving background contextual information that you realize you're out of time. And that's it for you. You had a good idea. You even had a good business model canvas, but you didn't present it well. You ran out of time. The judge can't help you at that point. Or the investor cannot help you at that point. You ran out of time. In other words, you didn't manage your time well in delivering this pitch. You have to manage your time well. Okay, different types of pitches. This first one is like an audience pitch. In other words, it's like a competition. It's typical what you'll see in like Shark Tank, where you're going and there's universities have this sometimes. It used to be that you used to have these big audiences and you pitch and then everybody claps when you finish. A lot of times these days you don't have that. It's like an audience pitch, but they remove the audience because a lot of times the pitch proposers have confidential information, intellectual property, unique ideas that they don't really want to get out there. They only want to tell it to the judges and not have all and sundry get a good sense of what this is because they fear that someone is going to take their idea or compromise their intellectual property. And that's a reasonable fear. So for example, for our pitch competition, we may decide that we're going to keep the presentation to just you and the judges and have us a room for that where you can just come in, do the presentation, but the award ceremony will probably most likely be an open forum. So we're working on that component, all right? But sometimes it can be an audience pitch. Sometimes it's just a B2B pitch. You might be a business owner yourself, and you are trying to attract a business deal with another business owner. And so you are not pitching to an investor. You're simply pitching to another business owner because you're trying to collaborate and probably partner up to do something. And so you do a B2B business pitch, and that can happen as well. Sometimes it's the elevator pitch. That's the dreaded elevator pitch. Have any of you heard of that term, elevator pitch, before? You've heard that term, elevator pitch? Well, the elevator pitch is basically the shortest time you can get. And there's an actual story behind this, right? And the story goes, and I actually Googled it the other day to see if the story was true. And I think it's partially true. It's probably embellished a little bit. But the story goes, this young executive thinks he has this really, really good idea, right? And he's always on the lookout for an opportunity to present this idea to the CEO or to the managing director, because he thinks if he presents this idea, the CEO will really love it and he's going to get a raise and a promotion and all of that. So he thinks that. And one day he's going to his office and he jumps into the elevator, and guess what? The CEO is in the same elevator going up. So he knows that he's going up to the 3rd floor and the CEO is going up to the 20th floor. So from the lobby to the 3rd floor, he basically just has 1 minute, if that, to present his idea. So he decides he's going to go for broke and just throw out his idea in that 1 minute space before he has to come off the elevator and go to his office. And so he delivers a 1 minute pitch. And as the story goes, he delivered that so well. He knew exactly what he wanted to say. Maybe he practiced, right? He knew exactly what he wanted to say, how to say it. He completed everything in a minute just before he had to come off. And the next day he got a phone call from the CEO to come up to the 20th floor and have a meeting with the CEO and the other executives and explain in further detail the idea, because apparently the CEO loved it. And he did that. And he did get the promotion and, of course, the salary raise, etc., etc. Now, that's the way the story goes. I'm sure somewhere, just like in storytelling, somebody embellished it a little bit and add more money or add more flair to the story. But that was the gist of the story. And that's where the term elevator pitch comes from, right? It's literally a very short pitch. And sometimes in class, when we do entrepreneurship class in UWI and the students have to do class presentations, they may not exactly get an elevator pitch, but they may get a 3-minute pitch. I know some classes where some lecturer says, okay, at the end of semester, each group has to do a 3-minute pitch plus 3-minute question and answers. And the group has to do this, basically a full business plan, and present it in 3 minutes. That's really hard, because now you have to figure out what can I say in such a short space of time. Worse yet for the elevator pitch, which was even shorter. So it's really about knowing what you have to say. Sometimes a pitch could happen kind of impromptu, randomly, because you're at a social event like a business cocktail, or you're at a seminar, you're at a business mixer, and they have other businesses around, other entities, professionals, executives, etc. And you look across the room and you say, hey, there's that person from that bank. I always wanted to speak to this person because I have a great proposal for them. And so you swagger over to this person and you throw out your pitch. You have to think of, well, now that I introduced myself, what can I say now you literally have seconds now before the person grab a drink and move on to some other conversation, or just shift the floor and go somewhere else, right? So you literally have seconds before to make an impression, before the person says, okay, thanks, we'll be in touch later, and they're gone. So what can you say in such a short space of time that will be interesting and cause you to, get further opportunity to talk about your idea? And that could also be tricky, very, very tricky. But that's type of like a pitch as well. That's almost like making a pitch for your business idea. Or maybe you simply just wanted to work for that company and you walked over, you saw the CEO and you said, hey, and you say something that seems interesting and, intriguing enough for the CEO to say, hey, you really have some good ideas. Why don't you come over to my office tomorrow and let's talk about it? Next thing you know, you get a job, right? So things like that can happen. And there's events like that. They happen kind of all the time, different things. Okay. Elements of a business pitch. What goes into a business pitch? I kind of presented it to you earlier this morning when I showed you the rubric, the scoring rubric. Everybody remembers the scoring rubric. Well, this kind of follows the same process of the scoring rubric. And you're going to get the scoring rubric. If Joel is still on here, we're going to put that in the resources so that you're going to get that. I'm going to make sure Joel puts that there for you. But the elements of a pitch typically follows these steps here. If you look on the bullet points, it says a brief introduction. That's like a little brief introduction of yourself, who you are, what's your experience, and why you came up with this idea, or what led you to this circumstance, right? That's like a brief introduction. You can say, you can kind of be yourself, or talk about different aspects of yourself that you think might be interesting. For a professional pitch, I would keep it to professional aspects of myself, right? But very quickly on, you want to start now identifying what is the market gap or opportunity. You want to start now talking about, based on my experience, I've had a lot of opportunity to observe this particular sector and see how this market operates. And I'm noticing a lot of gaps. As a matter of fact, my conversations with many of the consumers and businesses in this sector, they've also indicated that they feel these issues very strongly, and they also perceive these gaps. So I'm observing an opportunity here, and the opportunity lies along the line of XYZ. And that's how you kind of would describe the market opportunities / gaps, or even problems that you'd want to address. You may even say many of the consumers that I've worked with or even interviewed, we've done some formal interviews, and most of them say, or 70% of them said, that this is a key pain point, or this is a key problem area, or this is a lovely nice to have, a real gain that they would love to see. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, we've come up with this business solution, this idea. Our idea is, and as you can see, bullet point 3, you kind of segue now into this describing the solution that would follow on from your description of the market gap, opportunity / problem area. If you describe that, then the next step would be, well, what is the solution that you come up with? If you came up with a good solution and you describe it well, this is now your value proposition. That is basically what it is. What are the key benefits? In other words, pain points, pain relievers, gain creators. What are the benefits? And what are the features? What technology did you come up with that drive those things? Again, you want to be a little careful so that you don't disclose any sort of patentable technology, but you have to describe enough of it so that the judge or the investor gets a good sense that you've come up with something unique. If you simply say, we have a solution that delivers these benefits, but we don't want to tell you the patented technology because we don't want you to steal our idea, that's going to come across as a little bit weird, right? Especially if the judges listen to your idea, they have a lot more experience than you, and they know that what you've come up with isn't in fact patentable. So you got to be very careful of how you kind of discuss that. If you want to meet with me on a one-on-one and just get a sense of your idea to find out if it's patentable, you can always talk to me. There's even the Trinidad and Tobago Patent Office that can give you a good sense of whether or not something is patentable if you go into them or speak to them online. Having spoken about your idea and solution, you then want to talk about, well, what is the marketing plan? This is now the marketing strategy, right? So your marketing strategy, basically, as you recall, it's your value proposition targeting a specific group of customers. So your marketing strategy is, we are targeting this profile of companies, or we are targeting this profile of consumers. Our typical target consumers will fit the following demographic and psychographic. And you'll describe what that is. That's who you're targeting. How will you communicate with them? Your customer communication strategy, right? What's that plan? What will you say? Where will you say it? What social media would you use? What platform will we use to engage customers, right? That's your communication strategy, right? Your customer relation strategy, I should say. And what about getting the product and service to the customer? How will they access it? Where will they access it? Will it be online, through a store, at your business? Where and how? So all of that, item number 4 in the bullet points there, that marketing strategy, marketing entry strategy, that's basically your marketing plan. And you should have a slide, at least maybe 2, to describe that. Section 5, if you see the bullet point 5, that's the implementation plan. Well, that's your implementation plan. That's basically your key drivers. your key activities and your key activities, your key resources. Your key activities and your key resources, as well as your partnerships, that constitutes your implementation plan, your description of that. What are those things? What are the critical activities that you need to do? And what resources drive those activities? And then item number 6 would be your financial strategy or your financial analysis. Well, now that you know the key activities and the key resources, you will then be able to work out your startup costs, your operating costs, and you can then compare that with the revenue streams and determine whether or not you have financial viability. What's not in here is your impact analysis, and that should be there as well. Right? So you should also, as a bullet point number 7, talk about your impact, socio-environmental impact. How will it affect people? What's so good about it? How will it affect the environment? What's so great about it? And then speak about, in your last slide, or last couple of slides, talk about, well, this is what we see. Remember, you're not talking to investors, you're talking to a judge. So we believe that this project can be implemented with a capital injection of XYZ. We also believe that there's financial feasibility because of XYZ. And we also believe that this would have significant benefits to social and community groups, key social and community groups, as well as the environment in this way and that way, etc., etc. So those are the main elements of the business pitch. Whether you use 6 or 7 slides or 20 slides, this is what the pitch primarily consists of. And if you don't cover any one of those, you're going to be missing out a key element of your pitch deck. If you ran out of time and you only got to a market entry strategy, you're going to be missing out on some key elements of your pitch deck. So you got to know what to say, how to say, and when to say. So you got to practice saying those things. So, and I say you could use your business model canvas to help you with the design of your pitch deck, because everything falls from your business model canvas. So I just kind of took a typical business model canvas, and let me just expand this out. Expand this out fully. I just took a typical business model canvas, and let me get my laser pointer. Here we are. And I spread out the business model canvas like this and use this to kind of populate my pitch deck if I were building out a pitch deck. So I would start with a little background of who I am, the team, how my business is structured, whether I'm the executive director and I have 2 persons, XYZ, that would be my governance. But now, when it comes time to talking about introducing the product, I will talk about, I might do a brief introduction so I get the judges understanding what direction I'm going. But then I'm going to speak right after that, talking about the problem area, market gap, opportunities, and pain points. I'm going to be speaking about that. And I'm going to be getting all of that information from my value proposition analysis. And my customer segment analysis is going to give me that. Right? Because my customers, when I did the stress test, are going to help me determine the problem areas, pain points, etc. And then I'm going to describe what my product and service is. Well, what it is, what it does in terms of pain relievers, gain creators, and what features it has that makes those things so effective. Again, I'm going to get that from my description of my value proposition. I'm going to be talking about who I'm targeting in terms of my market entry strategy and my marketing plan. It's going to start with who I'm targeting and a profile of the customer. I'm going to get that from my customer segment analysis. Point of entry, where I'm going to sell, how customers are going to access it. I'm going to get that from my marketing channels. Critical activities to make this marketing strategy effective. I'm going to get that from my key activity analysis. Key resources needed to drive the activities. I'm going to get that from my key resources analysis, and possibly even I might have a partner who provides additional resources, who I'm partnering with, maybe a strategic partner. I'm going to do a financial analysis, and that's going to come from my cost drivers and revenue streams analysis. I'm then going to finish up with a socio-environmental cost-benefit analysis or socio-environmental impact analysis. And then the last thing I'm going to say is what my offer or what my proposal is all about. And I've broken all of that up into so many slides. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. This is 15 slides. So I could potentially do all of this in 15 slides. I'm giving you guys 20 slides to do all of this in. So you're going to have a lot of flexibility. This, I think, was a 10-minute or a 5-minute pitch. I think it was can't remember how much time, but I broke up. If I have to present this as a pitch, I put on the side how much seconds I'm going to spend speaking about each slide. So you can do the same, kind of work out how much time you're going to allocate. So when you practice, you're going to be practicing saying certain things in like 60 seconds, describing your key resources and activities, 60 seconds. Because each section, all of these different seconds, they add up, eh? And before you know what happens, 15 minutes is gone. So you literally have to plan how much time you have to say each component of your pitch deck. And it's going to be on the order of seconds, whether it's 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 60 seconds, you know. And so you have to know how much time to place for each section. So you got to split that up very carefully and then practice it. Some basic pitch proposal strategy. Designing, let me just pause a little bit. I'm going to come back to this. You guys have any questions so far on this? Let me take some questions on this. We all good? It seems like a lot, but it's basically all of the components of your business model canvas coming into play here. Let me stop share for 1 second and then just give you a quick recap. In the design of your pitch deck, you're going to have 20 slides. How you configure those slides? Your first couple of slides should be like your introduction. You, your team, your experiences, etc., etc. Don't spend more than 1, maybe 2 slides on that. Your next slide or your next couple of slides is basically going to be talking about the problem area that you've observed, the market gap or market opportunity that you've observed, and you have done some market research to validate that observation. You then are going to be talking about your solution to that problem area or to that market opportunity. And you're going to describe it now, your value proposition. You may decide to use 2 slides to describe fully your value proposition, maybe even 3. If I were you, I would use a full 60 seconds, maybe a minute and a half, possibly even 2, if you want to really give it emphasis, to talk about your value proposition and all of the benefits and features. And again, you're going to describe in your business, in your value proposition, how that was validated through some market research, right? The design of your value proposition was validated through some market research, and you want to speak about that. The next slide or the next couple of slides is going to talk about your market strategy. Who are you going to sell to? What's their profile? Demographics, psychographics, how many of them, how many opportunities are there, right, to sell to these persons? What is your customer relation strategy? In other words, your advertising and promotional plan. You know, your launch strategy. How are you going to start? How are you going to kick it off? With a website? How are you going to do it? You're then going to be talking about your distribution plan. How does customers access it? Where will they access it? All of that is your marketing strategy. Your marketing strategy is your value proposition, your solution, who you're going to sell it to, your customer relationship strategy, your promotions, and your distribution plan, how they access it. That's your marketing plan. The next slide should be your business model canvas. And this marketing plan, this strategy, we plan to implement through an operational plan that allows us to maximize our operating efficiency or use these resources. And here's a copy of our business model canvas that demonstrates our model for commercializing this innovation that we've come up with. Our model for commercializing this innovation is this business model canvas. That should be a next slide, an actual business model canvas. You might even have 2 slides, like how I showed you earlier, to do a business model canvas. After the business model canvas, you now want to go into some detail. So your next couple of slides might be your key activities and key resources, because that's now critical. Your key activities, you might have a slide maybe with some bullet points of some of the key things that you have to do. You might even have some pictures of some of the activities that needs to get done. You might have a process map, a floor plan, some flow chart to show the activities and the associated resources that goes along with each activity. And you can do that. So you're going to have a couple slides showing your key activities and associated resources. After that, you want to start to get into your financial feasibility analysis. So now, extending from your key resources and activities, here are our critical startup costs. To implement this business will require these machines, these resources, these equipment, etc., and you have a costing for each one. And therefore, our total capital costs for resourcing the business will be, and you have a total cost for that. Based on what we need to do on our marketing strategy, our operating costs would be, and you have a breakdown for your operating costs and a total for that. You may have side by side on that table a revenue analysis. In other words, showing your key revenue streams, what you will sell, how much can you sell, and what's the price of it, deriving, of course, your total revenues. So you might have those 2 on one slide, recurring costs and your revenues. You could put that on one slide. And therefore, you'll have another slide, a last slide, to sort of summarize, based on slides that just mentioned above, the operating viability, the business, our analysis indicates that there's operating viability here, with the business showing a profit potential of XYZ. Considering our investment, our capital injection of equipment being at $100,000 or $200,000, we believe that this level of profits should deliver a complete return on that investment within so many years, making this a feasible prospect, so long as that's not 100 years, right? If it's like 5 years or less, that's a feasible prospect. So now you're probably up to maybe about 16, maybe 17 slides. You're down to 3 slides left. What do I say in 3 slides? Now you're coming with your social and community impact, your environmental impact. You should have at least 1, maybe 2 slides for that. So now you're on slides 18 and 19. Community benefits, social benefits, environmental impact, low carbon footprint, low ecological footprint, no polluting of any water or soil runoff or anything like that. You want to say that. Everything recyclable. And then the last slide is where you may be on either slide 19 or possibly 20. If you're on slide 19, you could use that slide to then say, and in summary, our conclusion is that there's a viable prospect from a financial perspective. It solves the needs of our key stakeholder groups, which is the profile of customer, and can deliver return on investment within this period of time. And we conclude that this is a viable, feasible prospect. That would be your last slide. The only slide you need to put after that is our last slide that says, thank you. Do you have any questions? And that would be your 20 slides. That's how you would build out your pitch deck. Now, let me go back to the pitch deck presentation to show you a couple of techniques now. Okay, some pitch deck strategy. One, in the design of your pitch deck, the actual PowerPoint, number one, keep the slides as best as you can. When I say simple, I don't mean like you only have like 2 bullet points in it, you know. But don't have it so cluttered with information that the judge can't see what it is you're talking about, right? You should use, let me give you a good example of, if you're going to put words inside there, have enough words so that it conveys as much of the information as possible, but without cluttering up the slides so that the judge looking at the slide and they're getting confused. They don't even know what they're looking at. It's so many different things on that slide, right? So keep it appropriate, right? The font size of the words, the spacing of the words should be appropriate, should carry enough information so that if I need to review the pitch deck before selecting you as the top 6, I should get enough information inside there, but it should be neat. It's almost like you're designing a promotional booklet. It should be neat, right? When you design that slide, you can use pictures, diagrams, and even tables appropriately for each slide, right? But you have to have a good layout for that slide. You have to figure out how you're going to lay out that slide so that it looks neat. It has enough information. It's not too cluttered, but not looking like it's missing information. Keep the style of the slides as consistent as possible. So don't have certain slides with red and white coloring with some fancy blue blah, blah, tables, and then you have another slide with a completely different backdrop with some kind of a scene, and it's like some gold with some glitter. In other words, you're telling a story here. Make it look like it all come from the same storybook. You know, don't have your slides looking like it's 20 different, you know, storybooks you try to slap together to come up with a slide deck. You know, keep the slide look and feel kind of consistent, right? I have here, don't try to use more than 12 to 15 slides. You can use up to 20 slides. We are making that allowance. You can use up to 20 slides, guys, okay? Don't go beyond 20 slides, because the number 21 slide, that 21st slide, nobody ain't gonna look at that. So keep it to within 20 slides, right? Have a heading for each slide. Don't just put a slide and no one knows what it's speaking about because you forget to put a heading. So identify what each slide is going to be talking about. So you might have a heading that says financial analysis. And then I know that that slide is talking about financial analysis. If you have more than 3 slides for financial analysis, you could simply say financial analysis A, financial analysis B, and financial analysis C. And that's how you would head up each slide. Or you might have financial analysis startup costs in brackets. And then financial analysis operating or recurring costs in brackets. And then the last slide for financial analysis might be financial analysis, you know, annual revenues. You know, so you could head up your slides appropriately. Presentation style. If you make it to the top 6 and you have to now do a live presentation, basically the judges will have a copy of your slides, but you will also have to present it now. So you will get a multimedia screen, a clicker, and, you know, a little laptop, if you didn't bring your own, to present your slides. And you will have to go through each slide one by one. And you don't want to look like you're turning your back to the judges to read the slides, or you're just reading verbatim what you have on the slides. You want to practice delivering the information so that you can speak about it without having to read verbatim too much, right? So in other words, know your business. Know your business model canvas inside out, so that when you get to each slide, you can simply present it up on the screen, but you can just talk comfortably about what that slide is showing you without having to read verbatim the slide, because then you would look like you're just reading it and you don't have enough knowledge about the business to be able to speak confidently about it. So you want to practice. right? You can show some passion when you're doing a presentation. That's always good, but don't kill it. Don't be so enamored and passionate that, you know, you come across as a little bit false, right? But at the same time, don't look like you're half dead and falling asleep. Because I've seen some pitch proposals where I was almost falling asleep listening to the pitch. And but I've also heard some pitch decks where I almost like to have to cover my head because the person has so much energy and I had to duck and hold my ears because too much passion. So you have to moderate it. You know, you have to know how to moderate your tone and your presentation. Stay cool. Some entrepreneurs and students, you know, they tell me, okay, I'm going to be nervous on this pitch. Let me tell you, judges don't care about that. Investors don't care about that. You could look nervous, sound nervous. That's okay. It's the information that you say that they're listening to. So don't worry about being nervous. You just be yourself and say what you have to say. That last bullet point about knowing your audience, well, I have already told you who your audience is. They're not going to be investors. They're going to be judges. So you're not going to be asking them for a grant fund, or you're not going to be asking them for an investment. But you are going to explain to them that this project that you are presenting requires an investment of XYZ, and the feasibility analysis is XYZ. You're going to be explaining that, you know, this is what the capital needs would be for a business like this, right? And, you know, thank you for considering our proposal. I invite the judges to ask any questions. So knowing your audience means knowing that you're going to be speaking to judges. But even sometimes when you do an investment pitch, knowing that you are speaking to an equity investor versus an impact investor could make a difference. An equity investor, pure and simple, they're only in it for the money. So they're looking to hear your financial analysis, most importantly. They might be interested in your impact analysis, but not so much. They're more in it for the money. An impact investor is on the reverse side. They may be interested to know that this business is financially viable, but they're more interested in what the impact is going to be. What's the social impact? What's the environmental impact? What are you going to do for society? Impact investors, they want to know more about that. They just want to make sure that they're not making a loss. But at the end of the day, so long as you're not making a loss, they're more interested in what good are you going to do for society and the environment with this product or service. And that's what you have to speak about, right? And then you have different entities like commercial banks. That's a loan as opposed to investment. You know, you have grant fund NGOs like IDB, European Union. They do grant funds for different things. Again, they're not a bank. They're not going to be lending you money. So you got to know if you're pitching to somebody like that, you know, what sort of emphasis you want to kind of focus on. Sometimes you're not even pitching for financing or injection from an external source. Sometimes you may be part of a company and your board of directors asks you to come up with a proposal for implementing some new system within your company. And so you have to know, almost like you're pitching to your board, and you are basically proposing to your board, let's implement this new strategy, and it's going to cost this, but it's going to earn this revenue. And that's like a pitch as well. It's just internal. Okay. Sometimes you're speaking to a business partner. Sometimes you're pitching to a potential customer, like if you're at a seminar or at a conference. So there's different types of persons that you'll be speaking to. Again, knowing who you're speaking to will help you to know what to say at the end, what to ask at the end. You know, generally, the value proposition and operational plan are always going to be the same. The financial analysis is always going to be the same. The difference is what you ask for at the end. That's usually going to be different depending on who you're speaking to. Right? This is a graph that's kind of show you what impact and equity investors kind of focus on. All right. That was the last slide. Let me stop sharing now. So that's basically how you could do a pitch. You want to use 20 slides. You want to follow the format. Pay attention to the rubric that I showed you. I'm going to ensure that Joel puts that rubric up on the resources in the website so you can have access to that. And other than that, it's the design of your pitch deck, your PowerPoint. How you configure the layout, the words, the color scheme, etc. And also, if you make it into the top 6, you now want to practice, because you're only going to have 15 minutes. You have to now practice what you're going to say in that 15 minutes. Is everybody here going to be in Trinidad, or some of you are going to be at different campuses? Out of curiosity. Right? Okay. Is anybody at Kville or Mona or anything like that? In which case, we might have to do something virtual. If not, you're going to be live. Let me just check the chat. Somebody says something in the chat. So Teddy Ann is in Trinidad. Okay, so I'm assuming everybody is going to be here on campus on... so if you get selected, you're going to be here on campus on November the 16th. Regardless of that, everybody has to submit their pitch deck. And you submit that to the entrepreneurship unit. I'm going to circulate the rubric for that. So you're going to have a rubric, and it's going to have, you know, what are the different components the judge is going to be assessing. They're going to have that same rubric to score your pitch. Okay? What about other questions? Any other questions related to anything else on the pitch or the financial plan? This was your last class related to any other presentations that we did over the last few days? Yeah, Terian?
I see. Right. So I had a question, right? So if I were to say that I wanted to refit like a room or something in my actual home, would you still consider that limiting myself to the like at home kind of like what you were saying before?
Yeah, so I mean, you wouldn't be ruled out, right? If I were a judge, and I won't be because I'm the mentor and trainer, so I can't be also a judge. I'll be biased. But if I were a judge, I wouldn't rule that out. That could be a viable, feasible prospect. There's one entrepreneur that I work with right now who got a $50,000 grant, right, to run his business. And he running his business from a room in the house, right? But he's doing vertical farming. So he has all sorts of sophisticated equipment, all the bells and whistles in that one little room. And he's producing a lot of output from that one room. So he ain't limiting himself at all. And he's actually running that business for the next year. And then phase 2, where we're going to now scale that operation up to another level where maybe renting out a new facility. If you're going to do a service type business, maybe like you're doing some consultancy, some sort of online sort of service type of business operation, yeah, all you need is a room. All you need is a laptop. You don't even need a decent room because you can put a virtual backdrop, you know, and you can run a good consultancy. So you don't need physical infrastructure. You need software and ICT infrastructure. So it depends on what you're going to do. You don't have to set up a, right? But again, consider who your audience is. If you are going to present to an investor, depending on the level that this investor is accustomed investing in, they think big, and so you have to think at that level as well. For this competition, think practically. Have a big think type of mindset, but also think in practical terms so that if I were doing a pitch proposal, I would say to the judges, my aspirations or my vision for year 3 and year 4 is to be here. But for the first year, this is my plan. And therefore, my analysis and pitch proposal is to set up this plan, right? This is where I want to go. But my pitch and my proposal and my business model canvas is for this first year, which will be at a very small scale. And then I will seek to expand later on. So you can't do it like that, Teddy Ann.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I was thinking of, actually. Yeah.
Any other questions, guys? I know it's after 12 and we all getting a little bit hungry. Okay, going once. Going twice. Okay, last comment. You can, if you need to book an appointment with me to do a mentorship session, I know I ended it yesterday, but I'm going to extend that into next week. I've told Joel that as well. So if anybody needs to book an appointment, they can go onto the entrepreneurship unit and schedule an appointment. If you need me to kind of review with you your business idea or talk about any aspect of your pitch proposal or any of the analysis there, it's half an hour appointment each, right? Some of you had appointments last week. If you go this week and you see a free slot that you want to sort of do another appointment, you can. Okay, guys? Other than that, everybody understands the deadline date for submitting your pitch deck. Was that said to you? Or Joel has to send that out to everyone in an email blast? Okay? I'm going to ensure that Joel sends out, right. So everybody, that's the 20th. So today is the 14th. That's enough time for everybody because you got to present in November, which is going to come around the corner very soon in 4 weeks on the 16th. So you want to have your pitch decks inside, right? If anybody thinks that we need more time, let me know. I can be flexible, right? But you aiming for that target of the 20th. So you got to be working this week. I know you're students, so you have your other classes and all of your other stuff, right? Somebody asked when is the UTC? That's an old conversation. AJ Rogers think you're going to need more time. Okay. I'm going to speak with Joel and see if we could flex that a little bit, right? Let me just check my calendar. So the 20th is this Friday. Do we need up to the 27th, which is the following Friday? That work? That would be perfect. So I'm going to let Joel know that I'm giving you guys up until the 27th to come up with. Now, since you're given a whole extra week, I expect to see dynamite pitch decks, right? So you're going to get till the 27th. Top of the line pitch decks, guys. I should be scratching my head to see which one should make it to the final. All right, guys? Okay, and then once you get into the final, you want to be practicing. Yes, you have class, I know. But this is like, you know, we take time to go to the gym, to go to a lime, to go to a party. We take time to do that anyway. So for the next few weeks, take some time to work on this. It will benefit you. You never know. You could be a finalist. You could even win. You could get access to the NEDCO accelerator. And you could be graduating and going and starting your own business. So this is important. All right. Okay, guys. You can all reach me via, I think you have me on email at the very least. Some of you may even have my number. So if you need anything to ask, you can ask a question. Yes, Teddy Ann?
Hi, yeah, I wanted to reschedule the training session, but I actually not seeing any availability.
Which one? You mean a mentorship session?
The mentorship, sorry.
Hold on. You're looking at next week. No, because Joel has closed off. I'm going to ask him to extend it to the end of next week.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to ask him to do that now. Okay, guys, I'm going to close off this session, and I'm just going to send a message to Joel to extend the pitch deck time and also to extend the one-on-one sessions time. Okay, everybody have a great Saturday, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay, take care.